Welcome into Quest Number 9 podcast. My name is Seth Warner. Today we're going to talk about Kentucky basketball from a fan's perspective. On this episode, we're going to be recapping Kentucky's season and their 78-65 loss. This season's just been kind of a wild ride for the Wildcats with injuries and losses up and down, ending up going 24-12. They ended their season in the Sweet 16 by the NCAA standards, being the 11th best team at the end of the regular season. But Tennessee, I felt like in this game, was the more aggressive team, being able to win the boards 34-24. Kentucky was able to keep it really competitive early on in the first, 10 minutes. But Tennessee was able to extend the lead and keep it somewhere around anywhere from 12 to 15, especially in the second half, and keep Kentucky in a hole where they really didn't have a chance to really break out of that slump. Kentucky shot the ball well, especially from three, shooting 40% from three, around their season average, but not getting up nearly the amount of attempts we need, only shooting 15 of them, but being 6 or 15. Kentucky, to realistically win a lot to really be able to beat any of these elite double-digit threes, and we did not get to that part. Offensive rebounding was a big issue for the Wildcats all year, but in particular this game, allowing 14 offensive rebounds to us only having 7, where Tennessee had 6 more shot attempts with 3 more makes, and they made 6 more free throws than Kentucky. So that was kind of a combination. Turnovers were another thing that Kentucky had some sloppy passes at times, having 12 turnovers to their 8, so a 5 turnover advantage. And a lot of those really hurt Kentucky in transition, allowing easy opportunities for Tennessee to create a rhythm, get to the rim. There weren't a whole lot of fouls called, especially in the half court when you're driving to the rim either end, but in transition, they would call a lot of and ones. So that was really important for Tennessee to get out and run. They really limited Kentucky from doing that, making it really hard on the Wildcats to really be able to push the pace of the game and control the rhythm. Kentucky only scored 65 points, only had 51 shot attempts. Overall, the Kentucky team was just out of sorts at times. We were able to get some good production out of Lamar Butler. Otagowe had 14. He was under his season average, but shot almost 50% from the floor, shooting 5 for 12. Our bench production really hurt us in this game. Usually the difference for Kentucky, only having 6 points to Tennessee's 23 points from their bench. That was really the big differentiator to me. The bench production, and then Kentucky's turnovers and just inability to get continual stops at times and grab rebounds at important parts. They did overall a pretty good job of rebounding, but it was like crucial moments. Really, when they lost the 50-50 balls was the really biggest problem for me. Kentucky had several big deflections when it was still in single digits in the first half, where they just weren't able to get the steal. Overall, I thought Kentucky was able to be really disruptive and get their hands in the passing lanes. And overall, I thought the Wildcats did a good job of being disruptive, using their length at times. And I thought the pick and roll defense was pretty good. Tennessee made some tough shots, and in the middle of the lane, Lanier had a deep 3. That was his one made 3 on the night, and he had a few tough mid in the paint jumpers that he made that Tennessee was just able to get pretty much whenever they wanted. We were able to run them off the 3-point line, but Tennessee just made a bunch of tough shots overall. And for Kentucky, like I said, the turnovers were big. The rebounding, just not being able to finish at the rim also was a struggle. Kobe Bray had an early layup, first possession of the game. Really didn't set a good tone for the Wildcats in their offensive rhythm, not being able to set a good tone. And Kentucky really never was able to get the offense going from there, only scoring 28 points in the first half, scoring 37 in the second, outscoring Tennessee by 2, but still not being able to hold a rhythm and get continual stops and make continual shots. So it just put Kentucky in a hard spot, giving up 43 points and having that high turnover and low assist amount. Kentucky just wasn't able to put stops together like we needed them to. Lamont Butler really produced well for him. He was one of those guys coming into this year. We weren't sure what his offensive production would be, but to close out the season, he shot 7 for 10 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3. 6 boards and 3 assists. He had 18 points. He was really able to control the pace of this game, was trying to get steals. Kentucky probably became a little bit desperate at the end of the game, so there's some bad shots. It happens, but everything else I felt like was in rhythm. Just weren't able to get as many looks as Tennessee was, and the turnovers got the best of us. But Kentucky, for having kind of a short notice with this team, it was almost the second, third week of the transfer portal when Coach Pope really got on the job. It was August 14th, I believe, was when his first day was, and having to build a completely new staff with only truly one holdover. One, if you're counting Travis Perry, who was a recruit but was not on this roster last year. So that just shows you the change. Kentucky will most likely have, I would say, at least 3 to 5 players back. Brandon Garrison, Otega Owe. To my understanding, the original plan with Brandon Garrison was to be a 2-year plan with Amari being the real center this year and then Brandon taking over for next year. And I think we still saw enough of him, what he can be. I like some of the things I saw defensively, especially in the year with his switchability and pick and roll. Some of his shot blocking could definitely improve with physicality, and rebounding is a big aspect going into next year. But with this team, there's not a whole lot of young pieces. Coach Pope's going to have to really rebuild going into next year. But I thought we have a good, firm foundation with some of our culture pieces. I like that I like what the players were talking about in their press conferences, talking about the culture that they're building, that you're going to have to come here and win. And this might not be Kentucky's, under Mark Pope, most athletic, most talented team, but it's going to be one of I think, teams that understand the assignment and understand that the pressure of being the first team and setting the standard for Kentucky going into the future teams. And like I was saying, from this team, we're going to lose a lot of different guys. We have 4 out of our starters are all seniors. They're out of eligibility, and that included Kentucky 2 out of Kentucky's 3 top scorers, with Otega Owe still having 1 more year of eligibility. And for my money, I'd most likely say he's coming back. Not totally sure about his draft stock, but with his lack of shooting ability and not being a primary creator and not an absolute elite defender at this point, I think he could become. But I wouldn't see the NIL money and NBA money, the NBA money being more than the NIL money that he's getting now, or could be getting at Kentucky. Some of these younger guys I thought have really made a step. Colin Chandler, a guy in this Tennessee game, played 15 minutes. At certain points this season, wasn't playing at all. He's a guy that I could see really developing, not taking as big of a jump as Trent Noah and Travis Perry, but still taking a jump just because he's older. I think he's 22 after going on that Mormon mission. So that kind of changes his timeline a little bit. I think he'll still take a jump, but that age gap helps him a little bit with maturity and physically as well. So he didn't have his best performance, only had 3 points, 1 rebound. Brandon Garrison played 18 minutes of this game. Didn't do a whole lot. 1 board, 1 assist, 3 points. It was an and one, was his 1 made field goal. It was early in the game. But Kentucky with this team, just having kind of a short turnaround with having so many experienced guys, it would be interesting to see how Coach Pope balances the transfer portal with his foundational guys that understand his system. And that's going to really allow him to, I think, progress his process, having a younger team, but still having some of the understanding. Just having 1 player who came back from none of these guys played together last year. They didn't know they were going to be together until probably May. So for Kentucky, they have several holes with the starters, also having several freshmen come in that could potentially play some starting role. The transfer portal, I don't think I've talked about that much at all. It's been open for a week today, so it'll be interesting to see how Kentucky balances that timeline and really shows off that we have developed some really good players, and Lamont Butler wasn't this offensive player when he left. San Diego State. Otagowe wasn't this offensive player when he left Oklahoma, and some of the things like the guys said in the press conference, I think really affirmed that and gives Kentucky some good recruiting going forward. Overall, I think Kentucky just needs to keep up the momentum. I think it was really good having a second weekend run for this team, really getting to know them better and really getting more media attention on this team. This being Mark Pope's first year and really getting everyone familiar with who he is and who this team is. One of the teams that cares the most and put it all on the floor, even though having up and downs with players out, being one of the teams in the country that had the least most continuity, not even from last year, but all year. There's a stat that combines like your season continuity of players and minutes projected, how many minutes they were projected to play, and how many minutes they actually played. Comparing that, Kentucky was one of the bottom teams in the country in that, and just being able to build more continuity going forward. Kentucky's just strengthening their lineups and hopefully not have as bad injury luck as they've had this year, having guys in and out. Also, coming out tomorrow, I'm going to have a new episode talking about the transfer portal, going into all the different guys that Kentucky's going after, contacted. We already have one commitment from the portal. It was on the same day as Sweet 16. Tulane. Cam Williams, who's from Tulane, a long 6'8", small forward, power forward, who's really skilled. I think that guy has some high potential, but I'll go into that more on our next episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you like this content, I'm going to be coming out with some new articles at questnumber9.com. And please remember to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, aka X. And please like and subscribe on this episode, and I will see you next time.